Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. My name is Niels Tudor-Winter and I am the creator, editor and host of The Grant. The Grant is an independent, non-commercial podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. For a long time, I have been looking for a guest who would like to present a concrete project and tell about the practical implementation of the activities. I managed to connect to Senior Grant Advisor Virág Zsár from the Hungarian private research organization HETFA. They initiated an ERASMUS Plus proposal some years ago with the focus of building an EU project manager education at university level. They got the funding and have implemented the project the last 3 years. So, this episode is a nice practical piece with insights into what it entails to carry out an EU project, for good and bad. It became too long for one episode, so I divided it up into 2 episodes. In this first half, Virág presents the background of the proposal, shortly how the proposal process went, and the core content elements of the project. Further, we moved into the concrete implementation of the activities and how they had to adjust some of the planning as they moved on. Hint: Corona. Please enjoy. The Grant. Are you ready?
Yes.
There we go. Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. I keep having guests rolling in. This is the 3rd interview I have this week. It's a little packed, especially since it's a spare time initiative, as the regulars will know. So honestly, yesterday I never go to bed early, but yesterday I was so tired at 10 o'clock after recording a 2-hour interview with an old contact that I crashed. So that's what it does to you when you do 2 things at the same time.
I know.
Anyways,
no worries.
all of you, as you can hear, I have another guest interview. The timeline series takes a little break this week. This today we will have a concrete thing, very tangible, and I love this. I've been looking for guests to dig into this. It's a project. It's about a concrete funded project, how it went, and so on. So that's also part of the grant. I try to exemplify it so people can see, so you can all see how it is to actually run a project, what happens throughout these processes, and so on. Also a little bit geeky about the content. We'll come back to that now. I've already let my guest wait way too long.
Come on.
So, Virág, welcome.
Hi, Niels. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's kind of a great pleasure to be here and to actually present something which is something concrete, as you said. So actually, my name is Virág Zsár and I'm working as a senior grant advisor at HETFA Research Institute, which is based in Hungary, in Budapest. Previously, I was working as the head of division for the international cooperation, international division within the institute, where I had the chance to build up basically the international network, cooperation, and all the projects of the institute. So actually, I gained some experience both in the preparation, the management, and of course, both the administrative, financial, and content-related stuff of various EU-funded projects, starting with FP7, but also with ERASMUS+, Interreg programs, and things like that. Well, I'm also teaching project management. I'm doing a PhD, but this is the main focus point where I am here.
Yeah, we will get back to that. So, your experience over the years in the EU funding world, is that writing proposals or implementation or both, or how is that?
Well, actually, I started as a trainee during the university studies, work on FP7 projects, which aimed at supporting the international cooperation of the EU with its partner regions or countries like Southeast Asia, Japan, Ukraine, and things like that. So I was kind of supporting the BIs in this project. And then got more involved in other fields as well, like ICT or even AI. Well, then I finished the university, but I just couldn't skip this career, so I continued on in different companies or research institutes. But finally, I ended up in HETFA, and there I first worked as a kind of I think my job role was a research assistant, and then I got the chance to start to boost and to prepare projects for the institute as well. So for our researchers and our experts, while we started really at the bottom, so like with very small projects, with 2-3 partners, with about, I don't know, 50k euros or something. And then the more and more we got involved in the business, the higher and higher amount of projects came in, and we have now basically a coast action. We have more Horizon Europe projects. Also, we have projects funded by the Transnational Norwegian Fund, and so on and so forth. So we kind of climb through the ladder of EU-funded projects.
Yeah. So you have been most on the implementation side until now.
Both on the preparation and the implementation. So for quite a long time, we couldn't kind of divide the roles because I only had a very small team, like 2-3 people, and I was supervising all of them. And basically, our work also included not only the kind of support of the researchers, but in many cases the preparation and the writing of some parts of the applications as such. But then in the management, so if the projects were approved, then we also supported our researchers in the management. But in many cases, we led separately the whole stuff. So I mean, we coordinated the whole project. So actually, I have experience in all fields. I mean, even in communication, dissemination, and exploitation. In some cases, of course, the audit of the project. So really, because HETFA as such is not a big institute. So now we are having 35 colleagues who have a full time contract, and in addition, we also have similar size of experts and researchers who are working in HETFA on a project basis. So if we get a project and we need a kind of profile or a special expertise, then we invite them. So it's not a big institute. So, and our team was initially quite small, I would say. So we had the chance to learn from all fields, which are related to EU project preparation and then the management as well.
Can you already broke into the second bullet here on presentation of the organization, but that's fine. So no, it's fine, because it's always sometimes people it's natural to continue into about the organization you work for. So HETFA, in short, you already said a little bit now, but how many people are you? How are you organized? How do you get funded for the things you do and so on?
Well, actually, HETFA is a research institute, but actually it's an SME. So it's a private research institute, and basically we are living from our assignments and from our projects. So no separate block funding is provided by any of the Hungarian ministries or other agencies. So it's a private and completely independent think tank. And basically, the core expertise of our researchers and our colleagues is to provide evidence-based policy support for either the local, regional, or the national decision makers. And this is basically carried out through policy evaluation or impact assessment. But during the years, other fields were also incorporated into the profile of the institute. So now we have a number of colleagues who are active in local and territorial development. Others are working mainly in urban development. They are working a lot with the capital Budapest, but also other bigger cities within Hungary. Then we are also having a specific lab dedicated to different research and assessments of the creative industries. We were involved in the preparation of the Cultural Capital of Europe tender of the municipality of Veszprém, which got the title and which will have this specific title next year in 2023. And then, there are other fields as well, focusing on entrepreneurship and other policy fields. And besides that, as I told already, basically the Division for International Cooperation was kind of launched in 2014-15. And since then, we extended the scope of the work of our colleagues to the European and international levels as well.
Okay. Because I guess it's kind of spreading out the possibility for funding for the things you do.
Of course, yeah. As I told you, we are private companies. So
but it's rough
resource for us, and also, how we get the money. So it also matters how we get the money, because at the European level there is a high competition, so additional support is needed for our colleagues to get involved.
Yeah, and it's very different from country to country. I just had an interview with a researcher from Vito in Belgium, and there they get, it's a private research organizations, but they do get some funding from the Flemish government. So framework condition is a little different. It doesn't. It's a block that's it's not a lot, but at least there's something. But other countries, and of course the post-communist bloc, you come from a different point, and the way societies were structured after the transition was very leaning towards a more liberal society model because of the hesitation to deal with state-controlled stuff. So often in most Eastern European countries you don't find that the governments, they support things like this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, actually, yes, it was important for us to go for EU money, so to say, and to also be competitive at this stage, because there are much more opportunities, not only budget-wise, but also in terms of professional development. And it's also we had a kind of niche that we could, in some cases, fill in, because in many cases, you might know that Central and Eastern European countries are still lagging behind with regard to their participation rates and the money absorbed in EU projects. So we said that if we can not only bring in the Hungarian knowledge, but knowledge from the neighboring countries, it represented an added value in the project.
Indeed. No, Virág. Is that how to pronounce your name, Virág?
Yeah, it's fine.
We should reveal to the dear listeners what we're here to talk about today. We have to talk about a concrete EU project that you have been implementing. It's not a Horizon 2020 or Europe proposal. This is an Erasmus Plus proposal, but it's the first project presentation that I have on board the podcast, and it's been a wish of mine for a while now to have an EU project to present and to have someone telling about how it actually is to roll out a project. And the thing is, we connected on LinkedIn, and I am very active there when I reach out to people when I see something interesting coming along. And we, I think your colleague Judith connected with me, and then I got a conversation going on, and then it was clear that this was something that that we could have a talk about. It's good. It's excellent also because the subject of the content of the project, that's research management. But let me not reveal anything about this. You will have the chance to do that. So let's just have a short fly in before we talk about the content and how you implement the project, because that's where the key weight of this episode is, to for listeners to have an idea how it is to implement a project. So it's going to be in general terms. We won't be able to dig a lot into layers, because you could probably have 3 or 4 podcast episodes about the different elements. But it's
Possibly,
about
yes.
sort of a sort of give people an idea of what it is to implement the project. But first, tell me background of the proposal, funding scheme, and proposal process. So let's just so how did this all came about in the beginning?
So actually, as I told you, I was leading the division for international cooperation, and we were always struggling to get to recruit colleagues who have sufficient knowledge and expertise in the field of EU-funded research projects. So it was a kind of continuous struggle to find someone who has real experience and who are willing to work with us. I mean, this really dates back to 2014, 15, and 16 as well. So that was one kind of motivation. And the other kind of motivation was that I became leader of Working Group 1 in the Best Prac Coast Action. This Best Prac Coast Action was a specific one because it didn't gather researchers, but it gathered research administrators, research managers, saying that excellent research needs excellent research support. And basically, it was a fantastic frame because we had a kind of limited budget every year to organize conferences, training schools, and even job profiling study visits. And as we received the funding from the Coast Action, it meant that this kind of paywall of membership wasn't an obstacle especially for the countries and the colleagues from the countries of Central, Eastern Europe, and the Western Balkans. So it was a really nice community of people, a really inclusive community, and we could learn a lot in the field of the preparation and management of EU projects, how to improve research support offices, and then all the cross-cutting issues we had in Horizon, and so on and so forth. So I became working group leader there. And I was like, okay, getting to know more and more colleagues and more initiatives in the field. But I saw that basically the training offers are mainly limited for those research managers who are already in the profession. So you just cannot start your university studies saying that, okay, I want to be a research manager, so I will go for such a kind of educational program. So I was like, okay, why not to do something? Of course, not a whole university program, but at least providing opportunity for students at the university to follow an elective course, which can provide them some knowledge on research and innovation funding at the EU level. And also they can get, some kind of experience in practicing the daily to-dos and the daily job of research managers. And this might also come from the fact that I was teaching for quite a long time EU project management at the university where I finished my BA studies. And the feedback that I gathered from these courses was always that students were really appreciated that kind of practical knowledge that I try to give them by bringing in a lot of exercises, really like how to prepare a budget, how to prepare the communication plan of your project, and so on and so forth. So basically, these kind of 3 different factors led to us to decide, and okay, let's make a project which can provide us the frame to develop an educational course for students, basically coming from any scientific field, to get a kind of overview, kind of glimpse on research management and administration. And as the
the idea was it was yours. So it was your idea.
Yeah, it was absolutely my idea. Yeah.
No, that's nice.
So we went to the Erasmus Plus program because it has a special opportunity within the key action number 2 to finance strategic partnerships working together from different fields, so not only universities but also other kind of research performing organizations or even companies to develop something innovative. And they don't set the scope of your activities. No. They basically provide a frame.
So what we can
this is why.
So for the listeners, the Erasmus for Erasmus Plus is the funding program for education. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
The educational sector. So it's a vocational training.
There are different branches. Like you can make projects for adult education, vocational education, higher education, and even exactly.
So that's the go-to place for educational organizations to develop trainings and courses, stuff like this. So yeah.
Absolutely. Of course, we went for the higher education sector because we wanted to train university students. Mm-hmm. And we made quite a complex project. I will tell you the details a bit later. Yep. But basically, we prepared a project proposal in 2019, and it was awarded.
How was the proposal? How was the proposal process?
Well, we didn't had much time. I would say I think it was about 2 months, not more.
And how many partners?
We had 8 partners, including us, the coordinators, from 5 countries. So we had 3 universities and 5 research institutes or think tanks and even a consultancy company. And I have to tell you that even though by that time I already had a kind of nice network of research managers across Europe, thanks to the best practice action, it was still very hard to get partners on board. So everybody was very much in favor of the idea. But actually, many of the research manager colleagues were not in a position to get the approval of their university, of their research institute to get on board basically for the project. And this was a kind of first experience that even if we have nice colleagues, their kind of professional development and the support from the university or the institutional management is still kind of lagging behind or is a kind of lacking so far.
So that took you long. So you had 8 partners, but it took a long time to settle the consortium.
Well, of course, we aim to reach out more partners from other countries as well, but we just didn't manage.
Okay. No, but you got the funding.
Yeah, we could get the funding. No, I mean, even despite everything, we could build up a nice partnership because we had 5 countries represented: Portugal, Italy, Hungary, Romania, and Slovenia. But still, I contacted even, I think, another 8 or even 10 partners, possible partners, but finally they just couldn't engage.
Well, it can be tricky to get the right partners on board. I know all about that. That was one of the main things I did when I was in the business. But anyway, so you got a structure of the consortium that was good enough to win the funding. That's the most important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we could.
So we're not going to dig too much into the proposal process. So I guess I can decipher that that there has been a lot of reach out and a lot of dialogues and a lot of trying to get people on board, which is very resource intensive.
Absolutely.
But the writing process itself Was that smooth, or was that troublesome? How was that?
Well, I would say that we as HETFA made the majority of the
Mhm.
work. So it was like we had the structure first proposed to the partners, like they were agreeing. Some of them contributed, some not so much. Of course, we had some discussions regarding the budget once we saw who is responsible for what, how we could share the budget. But what was important is that to give a big amount of responsibility for all the partners as much as possible, of course, within such a project, which is aligned to their expertise. And this could work out well, also because of the structure of the project and the results, because we didn't focus only on the development of the educational module as such, but also included a mentorship program, because we wanted to fill the gap between a university offer and the labor market
Mhm.
needs. And so in this way, the kind of nice division of the partnership, so having the universities and also the research institutes and the think tanks made a kind of nice flow, I would say.
Okay, but that's good. But it's a proposal process is always, well, it's it no matter what, it's resource intensive. Also, the writing process. So
It is. And I remember that meanwhile, we had already running projects. So we were traveling to project meetings and,
yeah,
just writing the project on the airport, on the plane, in the morning, before the meeting,
gosh,
after the meeting.
uh,
So yeah, it's not a kind of boring job I could perform.
this is what give people burnouts and stress
Probably yes.
reactions.
But on the other hand, you have the reward that your project is granted. You can develop something new, something valuable. And even, the meetings where you go, you get kind of inspiration, the new knowledge from the people, experiences, either cultural or professional. So, I mean, for me, this is a kind of motivational fact,
Indeed.
not only the
So let's.
burnout.
I've been spending many episodes talking about the process, so we should. It's we don't have to dig into that. So let's get
Yeah,
to
true.
the project itself. So first, before we dig into the implementation and so on, let's have a. Can you share with us the? You already shared a little bit. Can you give a short introduction to the what the project was about and the core idea and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I thought, so the project is called foRMAtion, in which the RMA is with capital letters, referring to the fact that what we wanted to do is to basically provide innovative tools, knowledge, and experiences, teaching methods, which can be used in higher education to educate students as kind of potential research managers and administrators. And in this way, by reinforcing their high level skills, transversal skills, and even some knowledge which is necessary for the sound management of European research and innovation
Hmm.
projects. And actually, the main objectives was first to collect and evaluate good practices in the field of training of research managers in the EU. Well, actually, we had to see that there is not much in the
Mhm.
field, especially for newcomers, because most trainings or even postgraduate programs are dedicated to research managers, but not those who can potentially become them. And then, based on these experiences, as I told, the development of innovative tools, educational and training methods were the core part of the project. But we also wanted to open up our materials and our results to the broader community of research managers as such. So in this way, we kind of transformed all the materials to enable even early career entrant research managers to get access to our results, to the curriculum and the self-development tool, and develop themselves. What was another aspect? Probably I also mentioned that it was also important to enable, to provide an opportunity for the students to get a kind of first job experience by becoming mentees of experienced research managers. So this kind of mentorship program made a kind of bridge towards the labor market needs and expectations of future employers.
Okay, so that was the courses and then work in practicality. So get out there.
So in practice, what we developed together within the project was first the elaboration of course, good practice collection in the RMA trainings, offers, methodologies, and so on and so forth, which provided very important inputs for the development of additional materials. And basically, the core part, as I told you, is the educational module, which consists of a curriculum, which is very much detailed, includes 4 modules, which basically covers the whole research project life cycle. It also provides some introduction on developing the research plan as such, then developing the research, the funded research project, and managing it, and then reaching out to stakeholders, generating impact and things like that. And this is backed by a teaching material, which is again very much details. Basically, it's a very practical tool for the teachers who are teaching the module as such, because they have a number of exercises, interactive tools, online methodologies, and nice. Yeah, so just saying again, so a number of interactive tools, online toolkits, and the whole methodology which can support that the students not only learn about research management, but they can develop important skills which are related to this profession.
Okay.
And then, this is not the end of the story. So then, as I told you, we have a mentorship program so we developed a dedicated guide how to carry out this mentorship program, how the mentors can prepare themselves, and how they should guide their students through the whole lifetime of this program. And then everything was converted into an online textbook, which is freely available on our website. So basically, everybody can get access to it, learn basically the basics of research management, I would say, in Europe. And if you go through the learning material, the online textbook, you can also test yourself, your knowledge, with our self-assessment tool. And if you pass 80% or 85%, then you can get a certificate in research management. And of course, what the aim was to ensure that everything that we provide is at a high quality, and it also generates impact. So basically, the whole parallel activity that we made in the project was the monitoring and the impact assessment, which aim to monitor or to get a kind of glimpse from where the students start. So what is their preliminary knowledge on the profession, on the topics that we teach them. And then after the accomplishment of the course, the educational module, to what extent could they develop their knowledge and, of course, their skills and competencies as well. And this provided the basis for the final recommendations.
All right. I think we cannot talk about the implementation without getting into some of these things. So maybe but thanks. It's first of all, excellent idea, because I think one thing is that you would have possibilities available for experience, but I think there's also a junior issue here. Yeah, entries that have not done this before or would like to do it, and doesn't have to go through a I shouldn't say horrible process all the time about learning to write proposals, but it's very rough work. It's very rough thing to do, and nobody is telling you how it is actually when you start this.
Exactly.
in many levels about the concrete work, but also what you can expect when you sit with it, the pressure that you will get it. So it's I think it's an excellent idea. I'm very happy that you received funding for this, and I'm happy that it's an EU project where you did this, because then it's available, the results that you have, and it's
Exactly.
and just before we go into the implementation, is it now concrete for some other universities that are offering this now as a course, as a result of your work?
Yes, actually, yes. I think 2 out of the 3 partner universities will
Mhm.
continue for sure the teaching of this module, so it is integrated into their teaching offer. Even in the case of the third university, it can happen anytime. I mean, just some negotiations take place. But we also wanted to go farther, and basically by the end of this project, what we managed to do is that we launched dedicated alliances where other universities or research performing organizations who are interested in teaching the module as such or doing the mentorship program as such can join. So, outside the partnership, anyone who is interested. And we can provide them some preliminary training and initiated a kind of community of practitioners to regularly meet, share the experiences, and ensure that they can integrate the module into their teaching offer, and they can get the necessary methodological or peer-to-peer support to teach the course. So I think we can be really proud of this, that we could also manage to take a step forward, which was not originally planned within the
Mhm.
project, but we were really keen on ensuring that others will use these materials as well, because it is very, very important, and it makes a significant added value, I think, for all the universities and research institutes across Europe.
Within the ecosystem that I like, that we're talking about here, the listeners that we have here, they will all understand the added value of this. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think what is needed, a kind of more push to get all university management or institutional leadership understand the same issue,
Hmm.
because this is what we are still struggling with in many cases, and this is why it's just not that easy, that even if RMAs recognize this and the importance of such a module or the mentorship program, they have to persuade their leadership within their institutions. And this is the tricky thing so far, that it doesn't happen from one day to another.
No. Thanks for the introduction to the content, Virág. Let's move into the key subject of this episode, the implementation of the project. So I kind of put some subcategories here, and we
Mm-hmm.
don't. I will try. I sort of got a kind of a brainstorm, made my own brainstorm when I put them, so it doesn't have to be in exactly that order. But if we just start from the top, what I put here. So first of all, how was the work divided and carried out? That's a headline here. So work packages and core activities. How did you divide the work?
So actually, the Erasmus Plus strategic partnerships, especially in the key action number 2, are not centered in, or how would say, they are not divided into work
Okay.
packages, but they are centered on the intellectual outputs that you want to develop within the project. So this means that you have to describe your activities somehow integrated into the elaboration of these intellectual outputs. So in our case, it was the curriculum, the teaching material, the mentorship guide, and so on and so
Yep.
forth. And even the budget is created in the way, so you have to dedicate the different working days to the development of the different intellectual outputs. But basically, what is important is that our project was a kind of complex compared to the other or kind of general strategic partnerships within Erasmus Plus, because we followed the logic of Horizon 2020 or other FP funded projects. And we also had this kind of work package set up within our minds. But nevertheless, we had to transform it into the Erasmus Plus thinking. So actually, we had originally we had 7 intellectual outputs. When we received the grant, one of them, the development of the blended platform, blended learning platform, was just cancelled, so it didn't get funding. But otherwise, we try to ensure that what we are doing, all the intellectual outputs, are elaborated by a partner which has the most competencies. But also, we wanted to ensure that all the knowledge which is existing within the consortium are integrated. So it means that we had one leader for each of the intellectual outputs. From the partnership. They are responsible for that, just as in case of the work package leaders in other projects. And then we basically had all the partners contributing to the development of the intellectual outputs. And what was also important in our case, that we not only developed these outputs, so the curriculum, the teaching material, the methodological guide for the mentorship or the online platform, but we also planned a kind of testing phase. So, for instance, the educational module as such involved that for 1 year, the curriculum and the teaching material was taught at all the 3 universities within the partnership. So basically, there are 71 students who accomplished the course from the 3 countries. Then the mentorship guide as well. So we trained our mentors from our partner institutions, and then students were applied to be mentees. They had the chance to travel abroad and stay for 6 weeks at one of our research performing organizations, where they could get specific guidance and support from our mentors. And so this is how the project logic was built up, that we delivered something, then we tested it, and based on the experiences that we gathered during the testing, everything was finalized, revised and finalized. And this is how we kind of could ensure that by testing it at least in 3 countries or even in 6 countries in different institutional setups, their transferability and adaptability is very high. So basically it can be taken over by any entities in the research performing organizations within Europe.
So, so the flow, you develop the materials. How long did that take?
Yeah, it was, I mean, for the development of one material, you say, or I mean, we had the project was running for more than 3 years, so for 40 months in total. At some of the outputs were running in parallel, some of them were built in each other. So yeah, it took a lot of effort. So in the case of the educational module, I think we just started to work on it when the pandemic burst out.
Excellent.
Yeah, it was really nice. So we had, I think, weekly and 2 weekly meetings with the teachers and our RMA experts for a year.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we started it in March, and basically we could finish it in December or in January the next year. And then right afterwards, the testing has started. So during 2 semesters, or even in 2 cases, it ran for 3 semesters. And then following the testing phase, our colleagues finalized these outputs and then made available on the website.
Okay, so developing course materials, then testing how the courses run, then feedback back to the teaching material, I guess, to adjust.
Yeah.
And then going, and then that feeding back to real courses, so to say.
Yeah.
And then mentor-mentee
A mentorship program as well,
yeah.
and in parallel, as I told you, to make available everything in an interactive and in a nice manner, the online development platform or educational tool was also developed with the self development tool. And in the meantime, we run continuously the impact assessment. So we had developed surveys for the students before starting the course, after the course, compare the results, even for the mentorship program. Then we had the seasonal school. So yeah, there were quite some work in it, I can say.
Yeah, but it's important for me to also for listeners to get an idea how these things work. So it's a 3-year process, and it takes a while to develop these things because that's what you get money for. So you get money to develop curriculum, you get money to run tests in real teaching situations, you get money to adjust these things. That's also why it's a project. It's you need to test things and you need to adjust things, right, to get the right so the flow and the connection between the different, what do you call them,
outputs,
not work package,
intellectual outputs.
So call them actions maybe, also so the activity, so the connection between them, was that, did it follow how you perceived it when you wrote the proposal and you had the talks about the flow, or did you have to adjust some things because of Corona, or
yes, absolutely, yeah. So basically, this was basically the challenge, that sometimes the things were built on each other, sometimes they could run in parallel, but sometimes we needed inputs from each other and to see how. So before developing or finishing a kind of first phase, then we couldn't turn into the next phase. And then as I told you, basically it was a half year. The project was running, and then the Corona burst out. So burst out, right? So sorry. So the Corona burst out. So it means that just we started to work, we had to switch in online mode. And what was, I think, the worst is that we didn't know where it would end. So we were constantly planning and replanning and replanning and replanning, because we had kind of half yearly physical meetings and organized back to back to these meetings, some kind of trainings for the teachers, training for the mentors, an open stakeholder, even whatever. So it was a kind of, a very well structured thing when we wrote the proposal, and then the Corona came. So I think for a year, or even more than a year, we were all the time revising our plans, what to do, when we can do it, when we can travel, when we can student. No, we cannot. Okay, the teachers training then was shifted completely to online, then the mentors training as well. So we just always adjusted our plans to the different scenarios, consulted with the national agency from where we get the grant, read the partners, what they see feasible, what they didn't see feasible, and things like that. So it was, this made our life quite difficult during that time. Of course, not only our life, but the whole.
That's the whole world was challenged in that way. I had a thought. Wasn't there some sort of advantage for you that you could actually participate in the trainings online? Did you do that?
Well, what was a kind of advantage is that it was in 2020 where we were working on the curriculum and the teaching material. Well, no, we had budget for the training to enable that every teacher can come there. It wasn't an issue by that time. What was the kind of chance that when we started the piloting of the teaching, it could have been tested first in an online environment, although it wasn't the purpose in the beginning. But then we learned that it can also work very much and very well work in an online learning environment. And then in the next semester, it was already, I think, the second semester of 2020, so the autumn semester of 2021. And at that time, in one of the universities, it was a completely in-person teaching. In others, it was rather hybrid teaching. So all these kind of possible environments of teaching were tested, basically. So it was a kind of advantage. However, what we decided to completely postpone till we can travel again was the mentorship program, because our teachers suggested that the students will not be willing to complete a mentorship program which is fully online, because there is nothing in it. They were already tired about all the screen times and learning everything online. So fortunately we could make it during the summer of 2022 to let the students to travel abroad and spend their mentorship. And basically this was the same with the seasonal school that was organized for the testing of the online toolkit and the self-development tool. And basically it was also quite very risky, I would say. I think it was the first travel after the pandemic for most of the partners that we could organize it in Rome in April 2022. And I think till the very last month we were like, okay, we want to do it in person, but anytime we can get back to Corona and that we cannot organize it. But finally we could do so. So yeah, in some cases it was kind of an advantage because it enabled us to make the testing in different environments. But in other cases, we were stick to the original plans to let students to have real experience.
Yeah, it's Corona made the contingency planning difficult for many projects, especially these kind of projects with a lot of outreach plans. So it's we will get back to the contingency later, but we sort of now we touched this, but we will get back to it in the end of the run through here. Okay, so that was the sort of work, the activities and how the flow of these was. Now, what I put next here is communication, dissemination, exploitation activities. Do you have that in Erasmus?
Absolutely, we have. It's very important requirements. I think you get 20 or 30% during the evaluation.
And here I will be fading out of the first part of this double episode on the presentation of the Erasmus Plus project, foRMAtion. Second part of this double episode will be released next Monday, and here we will dig into the communication and dissemination activities, the deliverables and results of the project, but also the chemistry in the consortium between the consortium partners. We will look at the connection to the funding administrators and, of course, the troubles that they eventually ran into during the implementation of the project. You can look forward to that. See you then.